the special meeting of City Council for Tuesday, August 27th to order. Our first order of business this morning on our delegations, 2.1. We have Kathy Manette in attendance regarding the project development for the Bolter Community House. So good morning, Kathy.
Your Worship, as President of South East Health Services Society, I'm declaring a conflict, and I will see you at 3.2.
Thank you. So good morning, Kathy. And you can, the delegation table is there, and we appreciate you coming this morning.
Thank you. Thanks for listening to my concerns.
Is the mic on?
I think so.
Okay, good. Good morning.
Hi. I've lived at the house for many years, 8 or 10 years. To me, that's a lot. And I have concerns about the building going in because of prior activities that have gone on before when it moved from residential to business. And some of the concerns are parking. There was a lot with 10 parking spaces. I see now the new papers I got that we have moved 4 to the back. 10 at the front was a lot. We have a lot. In wintertime, we have a lot of snow piles. So there was a lot of concern with the snow removal not being done, not by myself, or not just with myself, but with other people on the block. It narrows the road down. The other thing with parking in the front is it will, with my house being beside it, there's more parking. It's going to be 24 hours a day, not just during the daytime as it was before. And being right beside a business, I didn't like it before because of it. I didn't like the way it looked, and you live beside a parking lot basically, and now it's going to be increased. With at the back, they'll be better, but there's still going to be parking. I would like to see, I know there's a fence going up, but I would like to see if there could be a buffer zone of the columnar trees, the tall ones. I know there's only required 1 tree, which they're putting on the 13th Street side of the building. And the vegetation, and has been maintained, that's really good. The drainage also. Dr. Baltrees had raised the lot and had come to me and said that they were going to put in a drainage wall, a supporting wall, as well as better drainage, and that didn't happen. There's various other things that happened, I realized, but that was never done, so that's a concern of myself also. The lighting, when there's going to be parking out front and out back, what type of lighting are they going to put in? Because there is, that's our bedroom side, and we'll face both front, across the alley and across the street, as well as be on my side of my house side. I'm at 1221. So I just don't want that glaring in our yards trying to, it's hard to sleep, but you have to have safety, so I would imagine there would be lighting going in. I haven't seen anything in the papers. Sorry, I'm not used to sitting and talking in front of people. A lot of my concerns were dealt with in the recent package I got this week, but those were my main ones. I would like to see just a more aesthetically pleasing wall beside, not a wall, but division between the residential and it's not residential. It is residential, but it's also commercial. There's going to be various people in there. So those were my main concerns. And the picture that's in here, exhibit showing the drainage, showed a house with a garage out front with a peaked roof. So I don't really understand how the drainage is going to come off with a flat roof unless there's roofing going to be changed. I don't know. But those are my concerns. I'm sorry.
Okay, no, thank you. You've done a great job.
But,
and we know this is for most people, it's nervous. You did
yes.
a great job of outlining your concerns.
Okay.
Council, questions?
Yes.
Councillor Lexter?
Thanks, Your Worship, and thank you for coming to talk to us about this. So the parking, the stalls on the east side at the front where they go border your house.
Yes, there's already 6 there.
Okay, so you're talking about columnars at that spot?
At that
there
side, yes.
back to where the fence would begin?
Yes.
Yes, or if there was a shorter
Yes.
fence? Okay.
Yeah.
I just want to make sure, instead, I'm not sure what the number may be, it may be 3 or 4, you're thinking to give you a buffer?
A buffer as like noise buffer and basically separation between parking lot and residential.
Okay. The drainage, I think it's clear, that will be looked after. From my understanding, there's no intent that the drainage would continue to come into yours. I understand they've looked at that and have a plan to address that.
Yes, I put new eavesdropping on my house when we first moved in, and most of it goes to the other side of the house. And the other side goes to a hole in my front yard.
Yes, the lighting as well, I understand, but I believe there is regulations on that lighting so that it isn't going into your house. They have the ability to use directional, and I'm no expert in it, but that should not be a concern. That was raised, you raised it, and I think it was looked into to be dealt with. I guess I would have a question to administration. The concern raised on snow removal. Could I just get an update on that? There's significant parking area there that will have to be cleared, unlike a residential property, for example. Is there a spot that they have planned to put it? Maybe I missed that in the reading.
To your worship, I'll ask Kevin. I don't believe the DP has any requirement for showing snow removal. It just speaks to controlling runoff from your property onto your neighboring property.
But snow removal under our city bylaws, your snow stays on your own property.
Correct.
And is there room for that? I guess I just didn't see the room with the parking, because that'll be a key part of it as well. Okay, as long as we're on top of that.
So through your worship, there is some room on the boulevard, but when you get that much parking, they may at some point have to remove the snow. They'll be able to pile it up to a certain point, and at some point, depending on the year, they may have to remove it.
Okay, all right. And one last one, with regard to parking, I understand the buffer zone between the two properties. I mean, it's not a requirement, but a nice to have, is what we're saying.
It's very nice to have, and it would make other members on our street happier too.
And I think my understanding is certainly the society wants to work with the neighborhood to make sure they're a good fit, and have, been working at that. One more question on parking. We have the number of parking spots based today on the bedrooms in the house and the size required number. Staff, where do staff park? Is it a requirement that staff would park at the hospital and walk over?
Through your worship, there are 9 required stalls, and the 10th stall is for staff parking. We've worked with. There's one parking spot for staff, is our understanding, but maybe they'll be able to clarify during their presentation.
Okay. Then maybe I could ask when they come up, just to make sure. I would like an answer on that, based on how many staff would be there during the day or evening. So, all right. Thank you.
Any other questions, Council? Go ahead.
Sorry, I keep jumping in. Kathy, if the issues we just spoke about, with the buffer, with the trees, if the snow removal is looked after, the drainage and the lighting, is that going to meet your expectations as far as this development? I mean, the development appears it's zoned properly, it's meeting all the development permit issues. This is really about neighbors talking to each other and saying, hey, how do we make this work for everybody?
Yes.
That would satisfy your concerns? All right, thank you.
Thank you for coming in.
Thank you.
Our next delegation, 2.2 this morning, is Dean Freeman and Bruce Endicott from the South Peace Health Services Society in regards to the Balter Ice Community House project. Good morning, Bruce. Dean, welcome.
Thank you.
Thanks, Bruce.
Thanks.
Thank you, Bruce. Thank you, sir.
Morning.
Good morning, Your
Welcome.
Worship and Council. I'm Dean Freeman. I'm representing as a board member of the South Peace Health Services Society this morning regarding the development permit of the Boltry home and the concerns that arise from this project. First, I just wanted to make record that the Boltry family has no association to this project, and it was just a naming of it in legacy of his prior work and commitment to health services within the community on that.
Hi everybody, I'm Bruce Endicott. I'm here, I'm not on the board. I'm working on the construction committee with Dean, overseeing and helping the board with construction. I'm a volunteer.
Yeah, so as you would have had some of this information prior and stuff to the concerns that were brought forward, we believe as a board and as a society that we will be able to meet those concerns and have addressed them, and recently went out as a board committee and met with the residents that surround the property as recently as August 22nd, and the concerns that you heard this morning were the only ones that were brought forward or raised, and we do have an attachment of the individuals that were spoke to on that date. And so are there any questions for the board regarding around what you've heard or what we can put into place to ensure? Because that's our commitment as a society and a community member, is to work with the local community and the neighborhood together and ensure that we have a strong relationship going forward.
Good, thank you. Councillor Lexter?
Thank you, Your Worship. I'm just following through on the questions I had asked earlier. The issue of parking for staff. How many staff will be at the residence on an ongoing basis? And what is the plan for their parking?
Yes, we would expect there will be a manager, but the manager will be of the society. This is a project of the society, and that would be an off-site office, because this is just a house.
Yeah.
There's going to be a check-in counter there. So we would expect probably one staff on the property 24 hours a day. There could be an overlap where probably that staff will do check-ins and cleaning, so it's not like it's a house. Imagine, more than one person in your house, it would just not be required. So we've got the 9 parking spots as the bylaws required per bedroom. The usage of those parking spots, I don't think is outlined, right? Of what those 9 parking spots are used for.
They meet
right?
the bylaw, yes.
They've added 1 extra for the staff member. And all the way along, the board has mentioned that there could be locums or nurses staying here. They would be encouraged to park at the hospital, which is right across the street. It's like, right there. So in the long term, it would be promoted to use the overflow parking lot, and we will make a deal with Northern Health and the hospital to have parking available for the long term and that type of thing as far as parking. Does that answer?
That does, actually.
Okay.
If it's, I'm hearing 1 permanent staff, I would say call what I would call them, then some will come and go. And if they do, the request would be to utilize it's a concern, I think, not just in this area, but in Dawson Creek right now with the amount of vehicles parking on streets in front of homes all over the place. So I hear about that on a regular basis. The snow removal issue, you're aware of that. I think that'll be a bit challenging and possibly require, depending on if our winter is as good as our summer has been.
Yeah, based on seasonal requirements and stuff, we would try to put the snow onto the property and then remove it as required if it's in excess of snow amounts. That would be the plan and part of our business plan moving forward, and our operating capacity would require us to have snow removal and to truck it to an off-site location.
Okay.
Can I add to that? Since the purchase of the property, a maintenance person has been hired that shoveled the snow, even though the driveway was not being used last year, just to keep it, in case a fire or something like that, as well as the raking of the gravel and cutting along, and he's been doing an excellent job in that. The board has decided to continue. So like what Dean said, if there's an excess amount of snow, it will be trucked off-site.
Okay. One final would be the parking on the front. I guess it'd be the northeast side of the property, if my directions are right. Isn't there 3 against the property or 4? The columnars, or the request for trees versus something there. What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so I think any type of foliage that can be used as a barrier would be considered in that application. And I know it's in the new information package that was put out on that. So I think, again, working with the neighbors to define what would be required and would be acceptable between parties.
Oh, okay, so you're willing to discuss that and try and come up with a bit of I mean, okay. Well,
I
thank
believe
you.
there's a plan out there that shows a bush on the front. I just don't have it with me, but I believe I've seen a plan. Things have been changing a little bit over the last few weeks, back and forth with our architect. But I believe that there is a shrub from the house out to 113th on the east side, I believe.
My guess, Bruce, would be that the shrub, I mean, based on, I think what they're looking for is a buffer.
Yeah, and
The
taller.
issue of columars would be
Wow.
the taller, narrow trees spaced in a way that probably
Yeah.
sight lines would be, so you're not looking at the cars parked against the side of your front.
That
That's
needs to
my
be adjusted.
I think we can look at it just of what's being applied to the back column, if there's column trees being there to continue.
Match it up.
And match it up and stuff, yeah. so.
Thank you.
Okay, well, thank you.
Councillor Parslow?
Yeah, I had a question about locums and nurses, but Bruce answered that already. But one thing I've forgotten, how many locums or nurses can be accommodated at one time?
Depending on the capacity being utilized,
Or they would be using solely, is that solely, there's no designated site, bedrooms for
there
locums?
is on that, and that's part of the carriage house.
Right, and how many could be accommodated?
I believe it's 2
Thank you.
on that, but we can adjust if the other rooms are not being utilized and stuff like that. At
Yeah.
the time, it can adjust.
Yeah, thanks.
Thank you. Further questions, Council? Thank you for coming in. We appreciate you guys giving an update on it.
Thank you.
Thank you. So now we move to item 3, reports. 3.1, we have report 19137 from the General Manager of Development Services regarding the development permit for the South Peace Health Services Bolterize Community House Project. Councillor Parslow?
I'd like to move the report 19137 from the General Manager of Development Services Redevelopment Permit 19-12 be received. Further, the development permit number 19-12 for the South Peace Health Services Society residents at 1225 113th Avenue be approved.
Thank you. Second? Councillor Earl, discussion? Councillor Lexstrom?
So just after hearing our discussion with both parties today to this, there's nothing in there that speaks to the buffer, I think, from on the northeast side, like as far as dedicating, we're gonna put 4 trees, 6 trees, to whatever the number would be. How do we ensure through you to administration that what I've heard both parties agree to here today is going to take place? Like, it's just a formality. I don't think that would ever be not done, but
So through your worship, as part of their final plan, it does show vegetation, but I don't know that it's columars. So if it were a specific type of vegetation, that's not included in this recommendation, but if we're okay, they're showing 3 different plants or 3 different types of vegetation occurring on the east side of PO1, PO2, and PO3. If you wanted to specify, you could, but
Okay.
but otherwise they are showing something there.
I don't think we need to go into that detail. I just wanted to ensure, and I heard both parties say, look, we're gonna talk to each other and make this work, so, okay,
It's-
Okay.
all right.
Thank you.
Good deal.
Further questions, Council? Ready for question? All in favor? Opposed? It's carried. Thank you. 3.2, we have report 19138. Maybe can we get Councillor Wilbur, please?
I got it. All right.
3.2, we have report 19138 from the Deputy Corporate Officer regarding our Airport Capital Assistance Program Agreement. Duncan, do you want us, can we receive this for discussion, please, maybe first? Councillor Lexstrom, Councillor Kemp, all in favor? Opposed? Carried. Duncan, could I get you to give us an update?
Yeah, so through your worship, this is the ACAP contribution agreement that the city of Dawson Creek has been presented by ACAP for the culvert project at the west end of the runway. This project
Could you define
is-
that, could you expand on what that acronym is for the people who
Oh,
are
sure.
listening?
Airport Capital Assistance Program.
Thank
Sorry.
you.
It's 100% funding through federal program. And essentially it's for capital projects within airports that have scheduled passenger service only. And we have been approved for a $3.3 or $3.4 million project, 100% funded through ACAP for a culvert replacement on the west end of the runway. That culvert receives drainage and water from a large component of the community, pretty much Briar Ridge and everything south of the highway and even west over to 8th Street flows through this culvert. It's in need of repair, and it's something that the city of Dawson Creek would be doing in the near future. However, we have this great opportunity in front of us to complete that project on 100% funded.
Thank you. Council? Councillor
I'd like to
Parsons?
move the recommendation.
Thank you.
if it's okay. I move the report number 19138 from the Deputy Corporate Officer, Re-Airport Capital Assistance Program Contribution Agreement be received. Further, the City of Dawson Creek agrees to enter into the culvert and airfield signs replacement agreement with Her Majesty the Queen in Right of Canada for $3,384,045. Further, the Council agrees to assume all project costs above the levels approved by the Minister. And further, that the Mayor and the Chief Administrative Officer are authorized to sign the agreement and other necessary documents on behalf of the City of Dawson Creek.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Wilbur. Discussion? Councillor Lexstrom?
Speaking to that, I think this is, the ACAP funding is always welcome news for any community to get 100% funding for something that not only helps our airport, but really drainage of our region. The only thing I'm going to caution us on is we are responsible for cost overruns. So if it's a $3.3 million venture and we get into it and this turns out to be a $4 million project, then we pay the $700,000. So it wouldn't be I think it's going to be very important that as we tender this, timeframes are going to be tight. Traditionally, we get a lot of people who will bid things and not meet the timeframes, unfortunately, due to our weather patterns. But this is going to be one that has to be monitored extremely closely, or I'd like to think it will come in on budget or under budget. That's not always the case with not just city projects, but projects in general. So more of a cautionary discussion than anything, but that concerns me in that.
Duncan?
So through your worship, just on the timeline discussion, so we have separated out the actual purchase of the culvert from the civil works. The culvert tender is out right now. We expect that to close September 6th, and that's really purchasing the culvert and having that delivered by the end of September. And hopefully we'll have that tender awarded on September 9th. It'll be a late item on that agenda. And then the civil works, we should be going out to tender next week with that, assuming approval of the contribution agreement. Make some assumptions here. So that civil works will be out next week, and we would require a special meeting on the week of September 16th to approve that tender with all works to be completed by the end of March 2020.
Thank you. And certainly, as Councillor Lexstrom's indicated, time for the fall is a critical component of this and the execution. So we want to make sure that we get that timely approval if council proceeds with it. Councillor Parslow?
Yeah, I had the same flag go up in my mind, overruns, but that was mitigated by the fact that we need to do this. This is a significant part in the jigsaw of dealing with flooding in the city of Dawson Creek. And so if this is something that we'd have to do anyway, and if there is overrun, I'm sure then that would be applied to that money that we're setting aside for dealing with flooding. It's a critical piece, as you outlined. And so this is good news for the community. We're saving millions of our own money by getting this grant. It helps the airport, it helps the community with dealing with flooding issues.
Thank you. And in the last 5 years, honestly, the capital program, I think for us in terms of budgets, major capital projects, the bridges, everything we've done has either been under or on budget. So we've had a really excellent result in terms of those capital programs. So we just need to continue that trend, and we'll see where the tender lands if council approves it, and get it moving forward. Further council, any further questions, comments? You ready for the question? All in favor? Opposed? It's carried. Thank you. 3.3, we have report number 19139 from the Deputy Corporate Officer regarding the Dawson Creek Airport Culvert and Airfield Sign Replacement Project Award. Councillor Wilbur.
I will move that report number 19-139 from the Deputy Corporate Officer regarding the Dawson Creek Airport Culvert and Airfield Signs Replacement Project award be received. Further, that the City of Dawson Creek award the professional services of the project to Avia, I'm assuming, NG, for the price of $99,780 plus applicable taxes.
Thank you. Second? Councillor Kemp, discussion. Duncan?
So through your worship, this is part of this project. This is also 100% funded as part of the expenditure. Essentially, Transport Canada pre-qualified 2 companies that have been involved in this project, as this was originally submitted in 2016 or 2015. WSP, Avia NG, pre-qualified based on the timeline, went out to competitive process, asked them both to submit an updated costing for the engineering services, a schedule that met the March 2020 deadline, as well as identify the staff that would be working on the project. Staff are recommending Avia NG based on the information of that tender, and this is just for the engineering services. The civil works we will be posting, and that will be going out next week, and we expect there should be some local bidding on the civil works piece, and we've already been pounding the pavement a little bit to let people know that this is coming out, and taking this opportunity right now to do that as well.
Thank you. Councillor Earl?
Thank you, Your Worship. So I just wanted to highlight, based on discussions I had with Duncan prior, that the need to spend this $100,000 is the result of because we did some previous work on a project, but that included drainage and runway extension. But since we're just looking at drainage, the scope of the project has changed, so we've had to redo some of the work here. So we're not doing it for the sake of being redundant. We're doing it so that it fits what is required, right?
Yes. So through your worship, we submitted a grant a number of years ago through ACAP. We weren't successful, and we had a price for engineering. This engineering wasn't completed, but we had an idea of what that cost would be. The project has changed. It doesn't involve ditches anymore along the runway, doesn't involve runway extension components. It's one culvert, and therefore essentially went back out for pricing on the engineering services. They needed to be updated, and it's essentially a brand new project.
Thank you. Further discussion, Council? Ready for the question? All in favor? Opposed? It's carried. Thank you. Item 3.4, we have report 19-141 from the Chief Financial Officer regarding municipal participation in regional planning. A motion to receive for discussion, maybe? Councillor Lexcombe, Councillor Kemp. All in favor? Opposed? It's carried. Thank you. Councillor Lexcombe.
Thanks, Your Worship. Speaking to this issue, presently we, along with all others, are part of the full participation in the planning process at the regional district. This discussion is a result of are we going to stay in or are we opting out? It's my understanding, my preference would be is we don't opt out, but we look at a partial participation is where I think we want to look at. I'm not sure that we need a say in what goes on in Charlie Lake, for example, in their zoning. But I do think it's vitally important in our fringe areas, our watershed. Councillor Earl raised that, which was incredibly important to us when we had a discussion the other day. And I thought, you know, those are things we have to think about. But for us to move forward on this, I think that there's a cost associated with it. I think we want to look at some options of what we can have as far as what participation level we want to look at. But this was for discussion. I'm throwing out where I would see the city's participation level being, which is more focused within our fringe area, our watershed, direct impacts to the city, such as, you know, zoning requirements if industry is moving ahead, but they're on the outskirts of our city or out in other areas. It's nice to have that discussion. I'm not really sure. I think that the Part 14 of the Act is interesting in the fact that it allows such participation based on how it's paid for as well. I have concerns about that. And one vote, you can spend $100,000 and have one vote, or you can spend $6,000 based on the size of your community, what it is, and have one vote. There's concern there about this whole part, but I think we want to have a discussion about our level of participation, not whether we're in or out, because I think it's vitally important we participate, but at what level.
Yeah. And so just for clarification, the regional district, this function of planning going on in the regional district, we pay as the residents and business community, the taxation assessment in the city of Dawson Creek pays for that function that's performed by the RD of planning, and that assessment value is based on our community's population. And so clearly it's an important function, planning, for our community as well as for the RD, and I think the aspect we talk about is not if we're out, but as indicated, what degree do we want to participate in, and where do we see that function of planning impacting our community being really important and relevant to our participation at that Peace River Regional District Board table as it impacts our community both in terms of zoning and other uses. And there's a couple of examples to me, having sat at the board now for 5 years, and certainly we have one I was thinking about was the old LP site on the east side of East Pine, where we get a share of that revenue from that old facility. So there's impacts that impact our community that are really important to us to be consideration, and I think that's the discussion we need to have as it relates to what level are we going to participate in, and where do we see that zone that's really critically important to our community in terms of moving forward as being a part of that planning function. Councillor Parslow, then Councillor Earl.
I'm for negotiating an agreement with the regional district that sees us put forward our legitimate interests for being involved in planning, but I think the full meal deal that we're into right now is a waste of some money and possibly time as well. So, but as you said, LP is a classic example, as are work camps and its impact on our local hotel and motel industry. I think we could come up with a list and try to find a win-win with the directors.
Sure. Councillor Earl.
Thank you, Your Worship. Yeah, having read the letter from the directors, it didn't have any specifics in there with respect to what they were looking for on our end. To echo Councillor Lekstrom and Parslow's points, obviously our watershed, the periphery properties surrounding our community. I know the city of Dawson Creek also owns some properties out towards the Cascatna that we use for various operations purposes. Certainly we'd like to see our area of influence expand that far. I would the one apprehension I do have is once again, or to Councillor Parslow's point around work camps, is it's not something that's necessarily adjacent to the city of Dawson Creek, but it does have a direct impact over our local hoteliers. I don't know how we manage that, given how quickly they seem to pop up and move around and whatnot, but I'd definitely be in favor. I don't think we need to vote on what goes on in Pink Mountain or Fort Nelson. I think the elected representatives are out there are perfectly capable of doing that, but I would like to maintain, obviously, somewhat limited or partial participation, I guess, is the option we've been given. I'd be in favor of entering into some negotiations with the regional district around what that looks like, and obviously making sure that our interests are maintained.
Thank you. Councillor Wilbur?
I just want to mention too, and I agree, I think we need to opt in at some level, but we need to be good stewards of the taxpayer dollar. But I also think it needs to be recognized, this has been in place for many, many years, and it is due for an update. So when we looked at this, it was something we recognized that probably hasn't been discussed in a long time, and so that time is now, and I think we have a great opportunity to strengthen our partnership with the area directors in the regional district, but also recognize that as Councillor Earl said, we don't need to have input on what's happening in Pink Mountain, but we also need to have the conversation that they understand clearly we are going to have a voice when it comes to what affects the community of Dawson Creek. So I just wanted to put that out there, that really this is something that has been in place, but it's due for an update.
So I just want to clarify that as the financial implications to this, it's not a budget line item from the city of Dawson Creek. It's a requisition that takes place to our residents from the Peace River Regional District. So like solid waste management, like 911, planning is a function that is requisitioned by the PRRD through our residents. It's not a line item from the City of Dawson Creek that we collect from our residents and send to the RD. Just for clarification.
Nope, thank you.
Good, thank you. Duncan, any comments?
Just through your worship, I was directed by council to come back with this report, and I just wanted to clarify, I was uncertain as to the August 31st deadline. That deadline only applies if we are fully opting out. If we are entering into an agreement with the board, that can take place at any time, with the requisition amount being adjusted at the next available budget. So if we were to complete this process prior to the adoption of the 2020 financial plan, that requisition amount to our residents would change. If we were to carry on into 2020 in negotiations, that would be a 2021 change.
Good. Councillor Lexton?
Through your worship, and thank you for that, Duncan. It would certainly be my hope that if we opt to look at a partial participation, that we accomplish it prior to the 2020 budget cycle of the Peace River Regional District. I don't think it will take a great deal of time to put this together, but I think as much as the planning issue is important, there is a financial impact on the taxpayers. Although it's not a line item in our budget, as you've said, your worship, it's a requisition from the regional district of which taxpayers in the city pay, and I think last year was $77,000, and not sure what it would be this year, but give or take a little bit of that. So my goal would be to see us move forward, and if you would like, I think we would could we entertain a resolution or a motion at this time, your worship?
Sure.
Okay. I would move that the City of Dawson Creek notify the regional district of our intent to participate in the planning process under Section Part 14 of the Local Government Act, and that we intend to enter into negotiations for a defined area for our partial participation.
Thank you. Second? Councillor Earl, discussion. Councillor Earl?
And I and Duncan can correct me if I'm mistaken, but just to alleviate the concerns of any citizens who are worried we might be giving away the farm or shooting ourselves in the foot, this is something we would have to reaffirm on an annual basis, correct?
Duncan?
So through your worship, we have the ability through the Local Government Act to enter into an agreement that has a term.
Okay.
We can
So
set that term.
if-
You cannot provide notice that you're opting out or changing until the last year of that term, so you want to set that term cautiously, I would
Yeah, but just
recommend.
in the event we need to make revisions as we make these changes, we're not going to be locked into it for the next 10 years. We can do it annually until we're assured that it's working the way we intended.
That, you have the ability to do that through the agreement if council chooses to.
And
And that agreement through the area definition of the area, what we see as being important, will all come back to council along with the term and stuff. And the other thing I think is important is for also this has some significance to our industry, and I think it's another discussion that I think would be prudent of us to engage with our industry, with the forestry, with the oil and gas sector, with the agriculture community, and say, are there issues that you see are important for us to be considering in terms of the definition of a specific area for planning that would be important to us to be a part of? I think just that it's a big deal for the industry as it relates to the economic impacts to our community. Duncan?
Just one more comment, if I may, Your Worship, just regarding cost, was something else council had asked me about, and that cost will reflect the land and improvements included within that defined area, and it will also reflect other municipal participation or local government participation. If other communities were to opt out of an area that we were in, our cost would go up.
Right.
So, and vice versa, if we opt out of wherever, whoever is still in that area, their costs will go up.
Sure. Thank you. Further discussion? Ready for the question? All in favor? Opposed? It's carried. Thank you. That's it for our reports. Mayor's business. I had a late item come in. I wanted to just get to council for your information. We've with the upcoming UBCM, we got a letter just this past few days from Northern Health requesting that they're going to be there, the chair and the CEO, Colleen Neese and Kathy Ulrich, and wondered if we would like to have a regular scheduled meeting with them during UBCM. And we got a couple of things, I think, going on with the Hospital Capital Project. The South Peace Health Society, I think, always is a real good initiative. But there's some other components around that I wouldn't think it would be worth our while not to accept it and take on 15 minutes or half an hour with them just to touch base. And I wanted council's approval to be able to book that before it gets too late. Councilor Wilbur?
I would move that we book that appointment with Northern Health to speak to them at UBCM.
Thank you. Second? Councilor Kemp? Discussion? Councilor Electrum?
Just a quick one, Your Worship, and I agree wholeheartedly to meet with them and get an update on that. If we can, in our discussions, many meetings seem to be booked during resolution debate time at the UBCM. If we could avoid that meeting during that time, it would allow us to participate in the resolutions debate. I know it's a difficult thing sometimes when they're setting meetings, but if it's at all possible, to settle at a time when the resolutions are not occurring.
The letter from Kathy indicates it's Wednesday, Thursday as the dates they're setting the meetings, and so we'll make sure that we're available for that resolution stuff, and a big part of that's Friday morning as well, right? At the UBCM.
Just
Councillor Parsons?
so related to this, is there any value in talking further about Rotary Lake? From your work this week, I believe, or was it last week?
Well, we have them coming on the 9th, so
Oh, they
we'll
are?
be able to
Okay.
give an update from that, and then be able to follow that up with Northern Health if necessary. And we're not limited to topics when we meet with Northern Health,
Okay.
so it's timely. Any further discussion? We'll go ahead and book a time with Northern Health. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. That's it for media questions. Anything? Any other business? Council? Motion to adjourn? Councillor Electrum, Councillor Earl, all in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you.